Welcome back to LivAnimated.com. Let's learn something new. We left off last where we skinned up our clothing to our model. What we're going to be working on tonight is working on finishing up the face skinning so that we can begin to do some facial animation for our character. What we're going to do, or what we're going to have to do, is go back to our last saved file, and from there we're going to work on this in sections so it's more digestible. We're going to work on the eyes and the eyebrows first, and then from there will be subsequent videos to follow. So let's go right into it. Let's open up Maya. Let's go to our last saved file that we had, and so that should be for me it should be number 17 when we're working on the skinning. So we're going to open up the number 17 file. And the reason why we're doing this is because if you try to use the deformation toolkit, those joints will not show up. We've encountered that problem earlier before with the breast joints, and we had to go back and go to this phase, make sure that they're skinned, and then it worked for us. So we're going to do that same thing again, but we're only going to worry about the eyes for now and the eyebrows. So right now, what we want to do is open up our rig creator. So click on that. You have your rig creator. This is where you can. We're going to do the rest of our skinning before we build our rig. Everything's already set up from before. If you've been able to save this file, which you should have, the changes we make here, we can go right into build rig, and we're right back to square one, and we can export out our base mesh, where then now we can see our eyes looking around, blinking, and then the eyebrows moving, and we're going to test all of our work as well. So right now, let's zoom in. We're going to work on our left eye to start. If we go to our mesh and select our mesh, what we're going to want to do is, everything should be in here. Yes. So let's go to our left eyeball is what we're going to do. We're going to go to vertex mode. Let's go to show, and then let's hide our joints so they're not in the way. Select one of the vertices on the eye. We're going to hold down shift and hit the period key over and over. And right now you can see that these are all weighted to the head, which is what we did before, just so we can get our skinning for the full body complete. We're going to go back and select the joint eyeball left, and we're going to hit 1. So now these are all weighted to the eye. Let's do the same thing over. Let's make sure we have everything selected. All right, I don't think there's any more. I just did another shift period. Hold down shift and hit period. We're going to hit 1 again. All right. So now we're going to go over to our right eye. Select a vert, shift period, get everything selected. And we're going to go, this one's going to go to our right joint, eyeball right. You're going to hit 1. All right, you can see these changed from the head to the correct joint that we want to use. So now let's go back to our left eye. All these eyelashes, we have a joint for those as well. Not for each eyelash, but for the upper lid and the lower lid. So we want to do, if you scroll down inside of the skin joints box, what you'll see is that we have joint, eyelid, lower, and upper for left and right. So joint, eyelid, left, upper is what we're going to do for our upper lid and our eyelashes. And then lower, we're going to do the lower lid and our eyelashes. But for now, let's go back to object mode. Let's go to show and unhide our joints, and let's select our eye joint. So the best way to do this, we're going to go back into our outliner. If you click over here, let's scroll down to root, shift click on the root so it opens up everything. Let's scroll down to our eyeball left joint, hit E. E is going to bring up your rotation, and then let's just rotate that around. From where we placed our center pivot, we should see that the eyeball is rotating around. Now see, in this and how this is set up, this model looks like it's not white on the top and on the bottom because this was not built texture wise for this. I'll go in and show you how we can adjust that so that it is white all the way around and it won't look creepy when they do this and it's like, why are her eyes bloodshot? We don't need to worry about that right now though. Everything's working. Let's look at the other one. Let's go to our right eye. Yep, it's rotating in place. Good. That means our rotations, our pivots for our rotations that we selected when we first started are on point, which is great. So now we can go back to hide outliner. We can go back to show and hide our joints. We want to select our mesh again. We want to go back to vertex mode. We want to go in now and we want to select each vert for the eyelashes. The best way to do this is select a single vert for each lash that we see. And then we're going to hit the shift period keys, hold down shift and hit period over and over until we have them all selected. That's what we're going to do first. And we're going to weight those. So the best thing to do is to zoom in, select. Let's hit W so then our gizmo isn't all in the way. Hold down shift and select more verts. So I'm just going through right now and selecting one vert for each eyelash that we have visible. Now your character may not have eyelashes. It's not very common for characters to have eyelashes that are going to be set up this way. They're normally set up as like an alpha card or some other method. But because this one is set up as geometry, which is really cool, it's going to be cool to see these working because they should be able to work in the engine as expected, which is going to be awesome. Usually when they're just cards, now you got to deal with your alpha channels. You got to deal with, is the alpha reading in the engine and working appropriately because it's overlaid on other things that may have an alpha. Like a lot of times the eyeballs will have an alpha to catch glare, and you know that the shininess and the specularity over the eye is usually on a different texture. Usually that'll fight with the alpha that's on the eyelashes and it looks kind of creepy. But because this is geometry, it works. So now we're going to hold down shift and you'll see everything lighting up yellow. Those should be all of our verts. It looks like I missed one. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go over back to our skin joints, and we want to select the appropriate joint for these, which would be joint left eyelid or joint eyelid left upper. So select that, hit 1. There you go. So now what we have to do next is we need to be able to look at our character and visualize where the eyelid is at the upper part of the eye. So if we look at from this vert, let me hit F to isolate. Just want to rotate down a little bit. So try to follow along with the segments. So if you look at these rows right here, 1, 2, 3, and follow the segments around, this row of segments comes up this way around the eye. And goes this way. This row of segments comes up and it keeps the same space of the tessellated quad into a tri. A tri is 3 points, 1, 2, 3. This equals a triangle. A quad is if you do 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we were to look at this as like one quad, these 4 points, these 4 points. We're just going to follow around where the segments would be. So this row goes all the way around this way if you go down. So we're going to have to take this row of segments, this row of segments, and this row of segments and start to blend them together so that when we close our eye, like how I have it here, my eye is closed right here, we're going to stretch in the model, we're going to stretch these verts that would be my upper eyelid down, and then when I open my eye, they're going to go back to normal. Because this starts with them in the normal positioning or the default positioning of where you want this is going to be like our 0, and 1 is going to be when they're closed. So that's what we're going to work on now. Is there a way to move these eyelashes out the way? I am unsure. Unless we do an isolate, but that's an isolating of the selection. Let's start to plot out some of our verts, and then we should be able to isolate what our selection is. So we know that we want, I know what we can do. All right. Let's go out of this mode. Let's go back to object mode. Let's go to show joints. And in the showing of the joints, what we want to do is we want to set some keys that we're going to delete. So let's go back to our outliner. So I just opened up here. Go back to our joint eyeball L. We're going to set a key. No, not joint eyeball L. We want to go joint eyelid L upper. There you go. Hit E so that we can go to our rotation. We want to set a key. So hit S. And we just set a key on frame 0. Now let's go to frame 30. Hit S again, set another key. But this time we're going to rotate on our Z axis so that we can move the eyelid down. As you can see, we'll have to blend this in later, but we're rotating down the eyelashes. And it looks like I missed another eyelash, but that's fine. So let's just rotate this down to here. And what this is showing us is once we get the eyelid how we want, we're going to have to go back to these eyelashes and do a little bit of fall off so they're not 100%. We're going to have to make that work based off of how we're deforming the eyelid so that it matches and they don't look like they're swimming around. All right, so there we go. That's going to be easier. So we just we rotated it down. Make sure you set another key. All your channels over here should have keys on them now. Let's go back to closing the outliner. We're going to hide our joint. So go back to show and then click joints and hide it. You can still scrub through and see the motion on here, which is awesome. It's awesome to be able to see that so that you don't have to worry about having it up here and then you're trying to look at these verts. It's so much cleaner. But what we will see is as we start weighting or skinning these verts to be influenced by that joint, they're going to start to pull down onto the eye, and we'll start to really start to see how the deformation is going to look. The other thing in this that I can already see is going to happen is we're going to get a little bit of stretching, which is going to look like tearing of the eyelid because of how the texture is on there. So if you look at where my cursor is right now, you see how the texture starts to bleed over into this row of quads up here. It gets even darker right here and right here. That's going to look like it's tearing and bleeding down. We'll have to see what it looks like. Usually with that, the artist will go in and smooth out those tones so that they don't stretch as much. So we'll see what we will need to do with that. For right now, let's select this last eyelid or eyelash that we missed, and we will go over and skin this to the appropriate joint right here, and then hit 1, and there it goes. It fell into place. So let's start with our row of verts that is back here on the eye because the eye is sunken into the eye area quite a bit. If you look at it this way, you know, there's a little bit of room for how this sticks out. So we're going to start with this row of segments. So we'll have, go back to W. We have this one, this one. We want to turn on our wireframe mode so that we can see things a little bit easier. So let's do that now. So we're going to go